What's going on, people? CP3 live from the lab, week 16. Unfortunate overtime loss, 41-35 to the Giants. It was an exciting game, an eventful game, an NFC East Division game, all wrapped up in one. We had some good, we had some bad, we had some unfortunate with the injury, re-injuring Haskins' ankle, taking him out in the third quarter, right? The first play of the third quarter for the Redskins. Excuse me, on offense. And unfortunately, on that play, we saw one of the telltale things that I spoke about several times on this show, not taking what was there. And if you look at the play, Harmon was there on the underneath route with the linebacker in trail position, had the easy throw, but he was looking down the field to make something big happen, which I can understand coming out of halftime, trying to come back, trying to rally the troops. I understand all of that. But he has to fix that in his game. First half, he was getting the ball out. You saw the stat, he was getting the ball out in 2.6 seconds, which is the fastest he had, been getting rid of the ball since he's started at quarterback or played quarterback in the NFL. He was the, second slowest release person behind Kirk Cousins, but as they said, Kirk Cousins used a lot of play action, so he just holds the ball too long. But we're not going to harp on the injury. He was back on the sideline. Hopefully he'll be able to start the last game of the season against the Cowboys and can continue to put up the numbers that he was putting up in this game before he got hurt, and the numbers he put up last game against Philly, which were his best, career numbers at that point. He was having a good first half, went 12 for 15, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns with a quarterback rating of 143. So you really can't complain or say that he's a bust or whatever. He started out the game well. But let's get back to the overview. You see the stats coming up. Offensively, I was very impressed. Even when Case Keenum came in, there was a little, glitch when he first came in. They weren't on communication. But then you saw, things started to figure itself out and they get the chemistry together. Went on that impressive 99-yard game-time touchdown drive. We'll talk about that more detail. Feel free to chime in on the Facebook live feed. I'm about to get the YouTube live feed up on my browser so I can see if any comments coming on there. Also, we see we got 151. What's going on? Got Sif, Lord, Brian, Brennan. What's up? What's up, Mark? Appreciate you tuning in. What's up, Sif? He said it was exciting, but more Wrigley's don't count in football. True, but I mean, the season is over. I mean, a victory would have been nice. It does hurt because they did come back and tie the game, especially on that impressive drive. But we know what this team is. We know what they're doing, looking at the young players, seeing what holes need to get filled. And depending on the outcome of this Cincinnati-Miami game that went to overtime, they might be looking at the number 2 spot. I heard previously that Chase Young, the touted defensive lineman / linebacker coming out, said he was going to stay in another year. I'm watching some of the post game now, and they're still saying that he's coming out. So I don't know. I'm not the draft guy. We'll talk about that next time on Sports on the Hill podcast on True Radio Network. Not sure if I'm going to do a show tomorrow night or not. Still up in the air. I'll put a post out tomorrow and let you know. I said that in the pregame. But a lot going on with this team. I'm watching some of the post game. I just heard, I'm not even going to say his name. I'm going to tweet him out later on. Was talking about how much work the defense needs and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, you got injured people out there that's not playing. Dunbar's a solid corner. He's talking about need to draft a corner with the first pick and all this and that. I'm like, this is why I wrote the article that I put out there. Because this gloom and doom mentality from this DC sports media has this fan base tripping. And yes, the defense looked horrible today. But you got youth out there that hasn't played together, people that you picked up off the street 2-3 weeks ago. So you're going to have miscommunications, and you're going to have the other offensive coordinator knowing those things and going to do things to try to confuse them even more. So I understand the frustration, but you have a lot of missing pieces out there that's not out there, and you have a lot of new guys that's out there, and they're showing promise. Granted, there has been some regression from 2 weeks ago to these last 2 weeks, but it's called growing pains. for these guys to talk about, oh, you need to get rid of this and change the whole scheme to a 4-3. I'm tired of hearing that same BS argument. This team ran a 4-3 for I don't know how long. And yeah, the numbers look great. They were top 10, but they still couldn't get the job done when it was time to. We've seen flashes of what this team on defense can do in these last 3 weeks. In 4 weeks, they had 20 sacks, 20 plus sacks. But now you're talking about the defense is so far gone, and you need to do this and do that. Y'all need to pump your brakes because I'm tired of hearing the BS. Because y'all need to understand what football is really about. Not sitting behind some computer being an observer, but actually studying film and knowing what the hell you're talking about. And I'm tired of hearing these folks touting this BS. So this team is not as bad as everybody makes it seem. Couple of few tweaks here and there. You got a real coach in there right now that's coaching these guys up. That got them out there playing their butt off. They 3-11 and out there playing every play for the whole 60 minutes. We didn't see that one time this season under Jay before Bill Callahan took over. So this team is better off where it is right now. And I hope they keep Callahan as the head coach for at least a year or two. Let O'Connell continue what he's doing. We see the maturation of the young receivers. I mean, what more? I mean, if you don't see the progress on the field and you just want to be gloom and doom, then that's cool. But you have to point out some of the positives along with the negatives that everyone's bringing up over and over and over again. Let me get some of these graphics situated. I got a little technical difficulties going. Let me get that. Nope, wrong one. I'm trying to get that. Oh well, I'm not even worried about it. It is what it is at this point. I'll live with it. But feel free to chime in. Let's see. Mark Morris said, "Why not go for two?" I know, but just wondering why defense was playing. Yeah, I was thinking go for two. Also, I didn't really feel overtime, but I mean, I guess he was having wanted to see more what the team could do. Hopefully, they could get the ball back in overtime and be able to win the game. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do that. And I'm still not finding what I'm looking for. I just got too much going on this page right now. I'm trying to bear with me. I'm lost. I can't find what I'm looking for. But oh well, bump it. As I said, we're heading in the right direction. I agree. Thanks, Jerome. A lot of folks don't see that, but you get these gloom and doom Redskins fans. Let's get back to the game. We saw some great plays by the wide receivers. We spoke last week about that, about them stepping up and gaining chemistry with Haskins. We saw that in the first half. I mean, he was throwing the ball around. He was making quick decisions. He was getting the ball out of his hand fast. And they tailored the offense to make it easier for that to happen, which is something we talked about in the pregame. Unfortunately, he didn't finish the game out. I would have loved to see how it ended if he would have still been in there. Hopefully, he wouldn't have continued to hold the ball too long on that play. I hear folks talking about the offensive line not playing well. I mean, it was a pretty clean game for the offensive line. They only gave up, I believe it was 2 sacks and one play to that Haskins when he, as I said, held the ball a little bit too long. And but other than that, that first half to me was pretty good offensively. Now defensively, we got to talk about the defense because that's something that I love, and I say this last 5 quarters of football from the defense has left a lot lacking. Like I say, I'm not making excuses for them that because of the youth and the inexperience on the field right now, but you have to understand that those things are going to happen. Blown coverages are going to happen. The only issue that I have is that we didn't see as much pressure as we saw the previous weeks. They weren't even getting close to Jones. Jones was stepping up, granted. I did see some holding on the Giants line that wasn't called, which is something we see on a regular basis, but they see all the calls that the Redskins do, which I never understand. You got to call it equal. You got to call it down the line. If you don't, to me, it ruins the whole game. And we all seen how some of these plays and calls, why is it doing that? Some of these plays and calls affect the momentum of the game, like that BS call in the third quarter that shouldn't have been called, but it swung the momentum. Redskins had the momentum. They were about to stop them, and boom, you get a personal foul call that extends the drive, a scoring drive at that, which we saw several times in the Eagles game. I tweeted that out during the game. I'm going to try to reach out to Dan Cheeseborough. I know Callahan. I forgot to send her my questions they have in the post game. I'm trying to keep watching to see what he has to say. But it was definitely this team is playing hard for him. That's just my thing. You can look at all the negatives and look at that he lost, but they're playing hard. We saw before that wasn't happening under Jay Gruden with his coaching or whatever he was doing. So it is what it is. I don't understand why folks can't see that. That's what it was. Had something else going on there. All right, got it straight. Let's get to some of the numbers. I took down the first half numbers because those are always interesting to see adjustments that's made and how things are going. Last week we saw offense came out like crazy, on fire, putting up great numbers. This week we saw similar. As I mentioned, Haskins' numbers already 12 for 15, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns, 143 quarterback rating. AP only had 11 carries for 32 yards with 2.9 yard average. Their run defense did surprise me at how they were able to. They were swarming all over the place. I knew they were going to play close to the line and put pressure on the quarterback, but even when Keenum came in, they were still, whenever the Redskins did attempt to run with Thompson or AP, they were on it. Thompson had a couple of nice runs, and I see Bill Callahan's taking the podium right now. Let's see if I can get a little volume. Just catch a little bit of what he's talking about. I'm sure some of you guys are tuned in also. Let's see. Sith Lord says, we're rebuilding. It's giving us a good look at the future. Indeed. Mark Moore said he liked that tight end. Yeah, Hutchins or whatever his name was. I thought I wrote it down. But yeah, he looked very good out there. Sprinkle looked good. They're still going to have to draft a playmaker tight ends. I feel that Jordan Reed's probably going to retire, or the team probably will sever ties with him to free up some more cap money. I believe he has another, I want to say maybe 2 years on his contract. I got to check, but I think that's about what it is. Let's see. All right, get back to the numbers. Steven Sims, because then you had Cam Sims had a nice catch on the third down. He got involved in the game. Also, another young wide receiver. Steven Sims had two catches, 20 yards, and a touchdown at the half. They had 12 first downs, 4 for 6 on third down, which for the Redskins is pretty damn good. And 66 rushing yards, 130 passing yards for a total of 196. But they had 4 penalties for 45 yards, and one of them was that BS roughing the passer call or unnecessary roughness call that shouldn't have been called, and it wouldn't extend to that drive, and yada 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 yada. The Redskins had 17 minutes of time possession into the Giants 12, but they were still down 28-14. The Giants had some explosive plays. Barkley, coming off his best game of the season, he pretty much torched the Redskins. Almost 200 yards rushing, over almost 100 yards receiving, with 2 touchdowns, one receiving and one rushing. So he lit the Redskins up today. He had a hell of a game. Daniel Jones threw for 5 touchdowns. Uh, I ain't really gonna get into much of his performance. To me, it was aided by, like I said, the penalty calls that some of them weren't, and it was stuff that they wasn't calling on the Giants, the holding and some of the blocks in the backs that they got away with that weren't called, but they happened to see everyone the Redskins put up, which usually happens and unfortunately is becoming a regular trend. Um, Going back to the first quarter, the offense looked good. The defense started out rocky, giving up a 5-play, 75-yard drive quickly to go down 7-0. Haskins came out, tied it up with 7, but the defense just couldn't get it together, couldn't get the pressure, couldn't get them down. And Barkley was just a nightmare all over the field for him. They couldn't get the right fits. You saw on the 67-yard run, you had some of the newer players, younger players, went to the wrong gap and left it wide open. And all he did was make one guy miss, and he was off to the races. And that kind of set the tone for the game. Had the defense on their heels for most of it. because of his being the X factor. Some of their wide receivers made some nice plays, and Jones bought some time, with his feet when they did get pressure because they didn't get home as much as they needed to, or as they have been in the recent weeks. Let's see, second quarter, yeah, that's when the roughing the passer call. Still with some bad defense, but Haskins was still looking good. Um, his footwork on some of the throws, the wide receivers bailed him out by going up high. We saw late in the game, Keenum threw one high for McLaurin, and they threw him down, and might have been hurt his shoulder or whatever. So I mean, you want to throw it to where only your receiver can get it, but you don't want to put him in a position where he can possibly get hurt. You know, when the defender gets there and throws him to the ground or tries to knock the ball loose. Um, I talked about the third quarter already with Haskins going down, and also Morgan Moses went down with a knee. Waiting on information on that. Um, oh yeah, nice play between Keenum and Sims to make it 28-21. They were the wide receivers were definitely making plays. You can definitely see them stepping up and rising to the occasion of what they're doing. Granted, defense isn't a top defense, but is experienced nonetheless. They're gaining chemistry. They're starting to understand routes and defenses and how to fit into the zones and what to do in different situations. So this experience is invaluable, even though it's a lost season. It's only going to help them in the future. Um, we had a block punt by was it Orchard, one of the new guys. So we had special teams, another positive for special teams this season, which we haven't had much to hang their hat on. Um, let's see, what else could we delve into? I mean, the wide receivers were the most impressive thing to me with them making plays. I mean, the defense is really nothing you really can be happy about with this defense. Giving up career games to Barkley and Jones, over 400 yards of offense. The third down percentage was decent in the beginning. I didn't really give it a whole look. Let's see, they ended up third down conversions. Damn, yeah, they both were 8 for 14. So both teams' third down conversions percentages was horrible. Um, the Giants ended up with 206 rushing yards, 346 passing yards for a total of 552 yards. The Redskins only got one sack. The Giants had three. Uh, Redskins had 6 penalties for 51 yards. The Giants ended up with 4 for 33. Those were late makeup calls that they were just trying to make it look even on the scorecard because they missed a lot of calls in the first half that bailed out the Giants. The Redskins ended up with more time possession with 33 minutes, even though the Giants held the ball the whole time in the overtime. Unfortunately, the Redskins didn't get the ball back. The defense wasn't able to stop them. I know we all were hoping they would at least hold them to a field goal, but unfortunately, another blown coverage, and Caden Smith got his second touchdown for the Giants to get the win 41-35. Um, Look at Case Keenum stats. He finished up with a 16 for 22 with 158 yards and a touchdown with a 107 rating. Peterson only ended up with 15 carries for 36 yards, so he didn't gain any yards in the second half. Steven Sims ended up with 6 receptions for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns himself. McLaurin, he had a nice day with 7 catches for 68 yards. Kelvin Harmon had 5 catches for 58 yards. So you had the three rookie wide receivers with at least five, all with at least 5 catches. And Sims Jr. with 2 touchdowns. So you see the contributions. And then Hutchins, I guess that's how you spell it. Say it, that's not how you spell it, look like. But he had 2 catches for one touchdown. And some nice plays by him. Thompson, he looked pretty well, healthy. He's playing for a contract. Not sure what they're going to do with him with Bryce Love on the practice squad. I believe he had to have another surgery, so I believe he's supposed to be ready for training camp. So not sure if they're going to bring back Thompson or what they're going to do with that. Um, let's see. Look at the defensive side. Well, got to shout out my man Tressway, team MVP, Pro Bowler, 5 punts, 236 yards with a 47.2 net with a 58 long and 3 inside the 20. What more can you ask from your Pro Bowl punter? I mean, team MVP, baby. Now, defense. Landon Collins led the team. Well, they all had about 4 tackles. He had 4 tackles, 2 assists. Uh, Tim Suttle got the 1 sack. The linebackers were like non-existent today. I couldn't really tell if it was the Giants' offensive line being able to contain them, or if they just weren't getting home or not getting their hands free. Didn't get a chance to really examine it like I wanted to, but yeah, this wasn't the defense we saw the last few weeks of them getting pressure, causing havoc, and meeting at the quarterback over and over again. So yeah, it's a division game. So granted, second time they played them, and they got more film on them and can do things to deviate from them getting pressure. We saw them running stunts on the Redskins, but we didn't see Winuski do that at all. And this was one of his worst games, adjustment wise, game plan wise, since Callahan's taken over. Granted, you got new guys out there. Communication is a key. They don't know the whole scheme. They don't know responsibilities when the other teams do certain things. So I get that. But when your front seven is still the same front seven, you got change on the back end, but your front seven is pretty much the same. So I don't know why he was so passive today. Well, I know why, because he couldn't run as much man because of the communication situation. But you still got to bring pressure sometimes. You can't keep on sitting in the zone and watching these giant wide receivers and tight ends just sit down in the zone because the front wasn't getting home and because they were sitting in the zone coverage. So I just didn't see enough adjustments from Winuski during this game, and I think this one right here puts a nail in his coffin right here. I was riding for him for the last couple of weeks with the way the defense had been stepping up, even with the youth and getting the pressure. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go look at the tape to see if it was more on the game plan or more on the players. But yeah, I think this might be the nail in the coffin for Winuski. Hopefully, they offer Tom Sula the head DC job and see what happens. Um, what else? Let's see. Check on some scores. Oh yeah, I can go over the first half games because I believe with the Redskins losing, I would have been perfect in the first half of games, but I took the Redskins. Unfortunately, it came up short, so I think I went 7-1, well 8-1 for the first games of this week. Going back to the games yesterday, and let me pull up the scores now. Appreciate y'all checking us out. Like I said, I'm not sure if we're going to do a Sports on the Hill podcast tomorrow, but I might do a video or do a Facebook Live or something just to put something out there. All right, finals from the first half of games. You got Jacksonville losing to Atlanta, which I had correct 24-12. Miami did beat Cincinnati 38-35 in overtime. The Ravens defeated the Browns 31-15. Tampa defeated Tennessee 38-28. The Colts blew out the Panthers 38-6. The Giants beat the Redskins 41-35. That's the one game I did not get. My upset pick of the week, the Jets beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 16-10. I got that one correct also. Second half games are Detroit and Denver is tied up at 10 at halftime. I took the Broncos. The Chargers and Raiders are tied up 7-7 with 18 seconds left in the second quarter. The Eagles are up 10-3 on the Cowboys with 7:19 left in the second. And the Cardinals and Seahawks are tied up at 7 with 9:12 in the second. So these are all division games. So you see how tight they all are. You got 3 ties in one game with one score in between them, the difference. So it's going to be some interesting, good games in the second half of the games. It's halftime for some of them. I'm about to jump out of here because I got to get ready to run, take care of some business. Appreciate y'all checking me out. As always, go check out sportsothp.com for all of our shows archived, all of the blogs, Sports OTHP apparel line. It's all on there. Go check it out. YouTube channel. Appreciate y'all checking us out. Sports OTHP on True Radio Network. CP3 live from the lab. And I'm out.